Good morning to all the new people joining in.
Really thankful to be able to take these classes online because I live an hour away and I would always like put it off because it's only for a half an hour. Now it's an hour and it's online. It's like, woo!
Yay! Love
It's fun.
it.
Thank
A win-win for everyone.
Yes. All right. 30 participants in the call today. All right. So it is 9:04, so we will go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go over the guidelines of how the class is going to unfold. So we'll open up the floor for a topic of discussion first, and then I'm going to share a little bit about my perspective on what we're talking about today, and then we have an amazing guest speaker today, which is Albert. Albert, if you can wave to let everybody see you. Super excited to share today. And then we'll close with some ending statements and a little bit of question and answer and providing time for that as well. Welcome to our free Wednesday permaculture Zoom class. This is such an honor and a privilege to be able to have this platform to connect during this time of social isolation, social distancing, as well as having this time and space to really sit in the silence and the stillness and reflect on how we can move forward in a more regenerative fashion in the lives that we're living today. So to introduce Sustainable Kashi, we are an interactive demonstration program with an off-grid eco-village. We capture rainwater, we use solar energy, we have 9 different demonstration gardens nestled within an intentional community in Sebastian, Florida. And our mission is to educate others around how to live a regenerative lifestyle and practice environmental sustainability. So growing our own food, really embodying permaculture principles and ethics in everything that we tend to do. We run a 3-week work exchange program, which is currently closed. So all of our time and energy is putting together content to share with everyone online during this time and have these online classes and producing videos for everyone as well. So we usually have our free Wednesday permaculture classes in person, and now we're able to bring it onto an online platform. So thank you for joining us today and being a part of this beautiful journey of learning from one another and really diving into the topics that I personally feel we need to be reevaluating and reassessing in our lives today. So today's focus is going to be on frugal living. And I'm really excited to share a little bit about frugal living. I'm just going to share a tidbit about my journey and then hand it off to Albert and have him share his insight and knowledge based on the topic. But before I begin with diving into frugal living, I would like to open up a question for others to answer. And now that we're having this time to really sit back and maybe we're provided the space to reevaluate what we want to be doing with our lives, and we can see that animals are flourishing in different areas because a lot of the consumption has slowed down. So maybe we can take a step back and see what are we doing in our lives that we can move towards a regenerative lifestyle. So I want to propose a question of what are you doing currently in your life to move towards a regenerative lifestyle? And to answer that question, you can either raise your hand like this, or you can put the raised hand button, which is down in the participants section. Hannah, awesome. Yes.
So I live in an HOA, and the permaculture professor at my university, he was talking about like all the people who live there's like most of the population in South Florida lives in these style communities, and the professor was kind of like sharing this idea where all these HOA communities like were like converted to more like sustainable Kashi style stuff, and having food forests around and permaculture stuff. But around my community specifically, there's all of this like land. It's full of like exotics, a lot of like plants from India and a lot of Florida natives too. And then like a lot of like invasive rosary pea. But I've basically been like guerrilla gardening into it. So like installing like chaya and stuff that like people won't even know is is edible, and people don't really know plants here. So it's just kind of like my sly way that I'm starting to actually harness food off of this land, and also yeah, foraging too. So like there's lots of forageable plants, lots of smilax and bidens that I use regularly. um and I literally made a tent yesterday off of like sable palm fronds that they were cutting down. So there's just so much abundance, like, and so much like fiber and plant material to work from.
Mm.
And what I really want to start is I want to get a diascoria cutting, because there's lots of tall trees that there are other like weird invasive vines going up. So I'm like, yam would be perfect, and like really calorie dense to grow here.
I love that. And I love that you're showing the small and slow solutions, even in an urban setting and in an HOA. And all those little tiny actions of you planting a chaya plant is completely embodying that new regenerative lifestyle. So thank you for sharing that, Hannah.
Yeah.
And does anyone else have an answer to the question? What are you currently doing to move towards a regenerative lifestyle?
So I run a company, and we're completely paperless. And I also live in an urban, community. And I have a hedge of blueberries. I also have pineapples that kind of go around the hedge. So it looks like it's something that is okay to have in that environment, but it does sustain food. I also have like 3 fruit trees in the backyard, as well as a small garden. Luckily, my whole yard is fenced in.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Incredible.
Thank you.
And then we have a hand raised from Tony Cho. If you can unmute yourself and answer the question.
Good morning, Mandolin.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm here with Jimena.
Hello.
Beautiful.
We love sustainable Kashi and are so excited to be on this call. We've been talking about it for years, and thanks to the stopping of the universe and our planetary solitude, I think this gives us an opportunity to really get in touch with ourselves. And this has been really a gift from the universe for us to really kind of stop and really get recentered and get quiet, and fulfill our meditation practice, our morning practices every morning and evening, and our rituals. We did a full moon ritual last night, which was beautiful. But
And learn more about these regenerative practices.
so we, thanks to Sustainable Kashi, are now composting every single day. And Terry Hanuman, came and helped us set up our composting system. So we're composting. We're reusing every single piece of what we cook. We haven't ordered food out or eaten out in 3.5 weeks. So we're really excited about that. So we've saved a lot of resources, and it's really been beautiful to learn new recipes and cook with a lot of things that are in our permaculture gardens that were curated and created by Sustainable Kashi. And so we've been picking our Florida peaches and, herbs from the garden. And we planted a basil yesterday, and have been more self-reliant and more self-sufficient, and just really feeling into, being in tune with the moon cycles, and being in tune with nature, and learning to live with much less and much simpler and much happier. So thank you, guys.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tony. I think that really focuses on how we usually go into these degenerative ways of living because of our fast-pacedness and our privilege to be able to go to the grocery store and just get something really quick to be able to eat. So you really focused on how you have the time and space to incorporate all the plants on your property into your meals. And I think that is incredible. So thank you for sharing. And I will take one more. Trisha, you have the hand raised button.
So we feel like this is all kind of happening at the wrong time for us, but it's not the wrong time. It's just what we do with it, right? So we have been part of the permaculture community for like 12 years. But a few years ago, we left our homestead, which we're back at now in Brooksville. We left it for 5 years to move to Indiana. And we used to have cows, pigs, chickens, gardens, every kind of plant that permaculture plant that you could think of. And then we came back to nothing because our renters didn't take care of anything. And so right now I'm practicing just being grateful for what we do have left, and starting up our compost again, and restocking our catfish pond, and just getting what we do have going again, and doing a lot of foraging. So I yeah, I mean, compost is where it's at for me right now because I have to rebuild our soil. And I have been talking a lot on Instagram with a lot of people about zero waste this week. A lot of people have been asking questions. So just going over that with people, like how to get started, because people think it's really expensive. They need a lot of money when really going zero waste or low waste is free. You just use what you have. And so that's what we're doing, just using what we have right now.
Amazing, Trisha. Thank you for sharing all of that. There's so many different ways that you're really taking this opportunity to creatively use and respond to the change. So that is so beautiful. Thank you. And before we move on, Lily, I know you have been having your hand raised, so I definitely don't want to skip you. So our last person who will share, Lily, you can just say a little bit, if you can unmute yourself.
I just wrote it in the chat, actually. I just wanted to, it's pretty much probably what all of us are doing, I think, except for those of us who are still transitioning. Hope you guys can hear me, from more of an urban scene. So I don't have any land. I've got my little, I don't know if Crystal Timmons is on here, but my little various plants and whatnot. And it's the transition and whatever I'm learning during my transition, making everybody else around me aware, including my family, my neighbors, taking classes like this online. You guys are awesome. You might see more people on here. I might have like my family wearing masks in the background next time. And I think also this possibility to build more, at least as long as it lasts, the online stuff. And using this, like you guys are so amazing for making this available, because a lot of other things just stopped. So thank you so much. And yeah, volunteering and getting to know the community to learn with all of you guys. Thank you so much. Love y'all.
Thank you for sharing. Incredible. Amazing. Oh yeah, loofah. That's awesome. Hannah mentioned loofah, so you can grow. Awesome. So to move away from that and move towards our topic today of frugal living. So frugal living is the act of being very intentional with your spending. And this can be in terms of finances, of time, and energy. And if done properly, you'll choose to prioritize the things that matter to you most and that are most potent in your life. You'll end up focusing on spending your resources on things that are meaningful and eliminating the things that you don't truly need. So to go a little bit, I'm just going to share a little bit of my own story. I was really, really desperate in wanting to live a regenerative lifestyle. And even though I was cultivating community and where I was living and trying my best to be zero waste and trying my best to be closed loop as I can in an urban setting, I just couldn't move forward any longer, knowing that a lot of the decisions that I was making day to day was harming the planet that I loved. So I packed up everything in my house into my car, and I moved out of my house and moved away from my community that I was in, because this was the most important thing to me, to live in alignment with my values and my morals. And the first stop I ended up was sustainable Kashi. And I did not know that coming here would mean becoming the project manager and living in a tiny house and eliminating most of my possessions and living in an off-grid eco-village ashram, like crazy reality that unfolded by moving forward. But it's really allowed me to see what I prioritize in my life. And I personally live off around $500 a month with the lifestyle that I choose to live. And my life doesn't revolve around money. There's nothing really that happens that I'm either touching money unless we're selling food at the market. There's not really any money that's involved. It's that I've placed myself in a position where I can share my gifts and live my passion in a place that needs that. So I'm able to have my yields provide for somebody else's needs, and then their needs are providing for my yields. So it's a closed loop system with what I'm working in. And by living this lifestyle that I choose to live, a lot of people, when they saw that I was living out of my car, it's immediately thought of, okay, you're living in your car, you have no place to live, you have no current income, you're poor. You're classified as poor because we're basing that wealth on the financial capital when there's actually there's 8 forms of capital. And I, I was like, I actually am so much more rich now that I've moved towards this lifestyle because I get to live in community. I get to live close to the earth. I get to focus on serving. I can actually serve instead of focusing on how do I keep up with this rat race to continue to pay my bills. That very linear system that we've been conditioned to believe is the only way to live our lives. And I'm a lot more healthier and happier based off of this lifestyle. So when people think of frugal, they think of needing to sacrifice something. When we think of frugal, it seems small and diminished, but being frugal doesn't mean that you necessarily need to make a sacrifice. The only sacrifice that we're making in living the lifestyles that our culture lives is sacrificing what we truly want to be doing with our lives. That's the biggest sacrifice that we're all making. So I personally don't feel that I've made any sacrifices in my journey of living the lifestyle that I do now. If anything, I've gained a lot more, and it's opened up my mind to all the different forms of capital. And this being, social, material, financial, experiential, spiritual, cultural, and intellectual. Not just focusing on the financial capital and having that be the main focus, but having all of these capitals come in and allow us to see this well-rounded and holistic perspective on how we can live our lives. So when I first started volunteering at Kashi, I was gaining much more than just free labor. That wasn't the only thing that was taking place. I was gaining experiential and intellectual capital about the systems of soil and crops and how to manage those crops. I was supporting the growth of healthy living capital within the soil. I was building social capital with all the connections that I made daily. And I gained spiritual capital by participating in the programs like meditation and yoga and ceremonies that occurred at Kashi. So really, like, living this lifestyle, it allowed me to understand that financial capital is not the whole system, and it can lead to decreased consumption of non-essential goods and services that fuel our infinite growth-based financial system. So I just wanted to share that tidbit of kind of my perspective on frugal living, and how for me, frugal doesn't necessarily mean making a sacrifice. It's really opening up your lives to be more wholesome, to be more focused on what you truly want to be doing, and kind of restructuring and reorganizing the lives that we're currently living. So I would love to open up the platform now for Albert to share his journey, insights, and knowledge on frugal living. So Albert, if you can take it away.
Thank you, Mandolin, Terry, and Amy. I love Kashi. I love what you guys are doing. And really what I'm doing here is a little small kind of version of what you're doing, yoga included. I'm a yoga teacher. Let me give you a little history about about where I'm coming from. I was an aircraft mechanic for 30 years. My last job was with United. I took an early out after 9/11. Since then, it's been over 10 years now. And since then, I just shifted everything. I was in the machine for close to 50 years, and it just really wasn't working for me. Did I make a decent amount of money? I did. Was I acting in a frugal way back then? You better believe I was. And that's how I was able to secure my little homestead here in Gulfport. I have a house that's completely paid for. And, that makes things a lot easier. But there are ways, if you haven't put in the 50 years or whatever it takes, to get there as well. And so one of the things I want to, kind of say in the beginning here is that what I'm going to be talking about is what I'm doing. And that's not necessarily the only way, but I have 2 sons. And one of the things I kind of tell them is, look, this is a way that's working. And you can start from that if you don't have an idea of how you're going to get there, and then you can branch off using your own ideas, which really is the best way. Because if you're not happy with what you're doing, which I wasn't for all that time that I was working as an aircraft mechanic, I was good at it. I was great at it. And the system worked well. I had 2 kids. I had the house, the picket fence, everything, but I wasn't happy. So happiness has to be the top priority, I think. You have to feel good about your life, that you have purpose and there's some meaning there. So this word frugal, I really don't like it. I think there's negative connotations to it. And when I was married, my ex-wife, she used to call me cheap, but I wasn't cheap. She just didn't get it. I was just not wasting. And what I feel frugal living is just common sense living. We're getting away from the common sense. I mean, saving a little for a rainy day, that expression has been around forever. That's about living below your means. And doesn't that make sense? That's not something out of the ordinary. That should be the ordinary. Yet most people in this country, and really in a lot of places in the world, are living way above their means. And it ends up being a life where you're very, very nervous about tomorrow, especially now. And then there's the whole idea of waste. I mean, honestly, a big part of my sustenance here is gleaning waste. I mean, I dumpster dive, not just for food, but also for materials, for projects, for all sorts of things. And one of the things that really helps my life to live a frugal lifestyle is riding my bicycle. And, people discount bicycle riding, but honestly, for me, it's one of the top things on the list, not only because it keeps you healthy, it can be your transportation. So, not using fossil fuels as much. And it's such a much more enjoyable experience. Plus, guess what you see all the time? You're not riding on the main roads, you're riding on back roads, and you're able to see all kinds of materials that are just waiting there for you to glean and use in your lifestyle. A couple of days ago, in one day, my partner, Laura Oldaney, who I would suggest everyone contact about financial independence, which I'll speak a little bit about later, she found a stainless steel pressure cooker that looked like it had never been used. Turns out it's worth $300. It was in the garbage. Also, in the same pile, she found a French press stainless steel worth $50. And then there was all kinds of building materials that I went back and gathered myself. I found a compost tumbler the other day worth $200 in the garbage, just sitting out in front of somebody's house. And the bicycle makes it so much easier to see those items because you're not going where normal people are going. You're going in an unusual route. And guess what? That's frugal living. That's common sense. It just makes sense. And so so if you want to, go into the hard numbers in my life, understanding that my house is paid for. And so I don't have to pay mortgage. I do have to pay taxes. So my hard bills, which are basically phone, and I only use my phone for internet as well. I don't have a computer. Electric, which I use very little. My electric bill is about $35 a month because I use less. My water bill, $75 because that's mandated up to 2,000 gallons. I only use 400 gallons. I don't like to waste, even if I can. It makes me uncomfortable to waste. It makes me uncomfortable to see other people waste. And when you can get to that point where the normal for you, the fallback is to not waste, and even to the point where you feel uncomfortable wasting, you're going to be a lot more discerning about how you live your life, and you end up using less. Car insurance, I have the minimal car insurance. It's $10 a month. Property taxes are $40 a month. So it's about a little over $200 a month are my hard bills. And then there's the soft bills. Gasoline, I'll drive my truck once or twice a week in very short distances. Now with my beekeeping operation, I do have to use a truck because there's a lot of stuff. But when I use the truck, I have this concept. It's called pay for the trip. If I'm going to use fossil fuels, if I'm going to use those resources, I'm going to use those to the maximum ability that I can. You better believe there's going to be dumpster diving. I'm going to get mulch. I'm going to get wood for the sweat lodge. I'm going to get when I come home, my truck is full. Compost materials. I have a route and I just use it. And so paying for the trip, when you start really thinking in that way, remember, making that your fallback. If you're going to get in the truck, if I'm going to get in that vehicle, I've got to figure out a way of getting around, where it pays for trip, not necessarily monetarily, but where you feel like you're doing the right thing in all respects. So those are there's hard bills and there's soft bills. So food, I mean, some things that I believe me, I'm working on it, that it's hard to get around. Now, Rob Greenfield, he can get around them somehow. I mean, for the everyday person, and it takes a lot of energy. And if you guys don't know about Rob Greenfield, look him up. He spent a year where he was basically taking care of all his needs without spending money, I guess. I'm not sure about the whole thing, but very interesting man. But things like cooking oil, grains, and meat and salt, things like that are a little tricky to do in a small, I live in Gulfport in a small 1/8 of an acre property. I mean, it's tiny. And I am really using every inch of it for some kind of good for my life. And that's another way of being frugal, when you really use your home. My home pays for my life. The moon landing is paying for my life in so many ways. And I would offer that to you. Really look at your home and see how it can pay for your life. And so you're saying to yourself, well, look, this guy, he had money to buy a house, so he's got one up on everyone. Well, there are ways around that. And the biggest way around that is house hacking. And if you haven't heard of house hacking, it's a way that if you can come up with enough money to buy a house, you can rent out the rooms to your friends even that may need help. And that can pay for itself. And there's other ways that you can do these things too. I mean, the thing about securing a space, and it's not the only way, but I got to tell you, when you can secure your space, even if it's a space that's not too pretty, you can make it nice. It can make it a lot easier for you to move forward with growing and getting your space to pay for your life. You can do it outside of that, but I do believe it's for myself, it's been a lot easier for me to put all the effort in where I don't feel like the rug is just going to get pulled right out from under me at any moment, which can happen. So how do I don't work as an aircraft mechanic anymore, but guess what? In the last 2 days, I had my nursery. I'm a registered nursery, and I sell sustainable edibles here at the Moon Landing Garden and Apiary. And I had my nursery closed because I was making space to bring in some chickens. Um, so I reopened the nursery, and in 2 days, and it's still going. It's still going. I made more money in 2 days than I ever did in 2 days of working in the machine as an aircraft mechanic. I couldn't believe everybody wants to grow right now. And of course, what do they want to grow? Sustainable edibles. It was unbelievable. And, a little bit too much for me. I really wasn't planning on all that, but I found it very interesting. So I'll ask each and every one of you, how are your skills holding up to the pandemic? How are they holding up? I can tell you right now, If I was an aircraft mechanic right now, my friends that are aircraft mechanics, they're really nervous if they're even working at all. And but what I'm doing, the way I fund my life here is I have a yoga practice on the beach that I had to shut down, which is a donate-based yoga practice. But I'm also a beekeeper. Bees didn't shut down, and I make all sorts of medicines from the bees. One of the latest things I started doing is gathering pollen, because the honey really here in Gulfport doesn't really start harvesting honey until June, July, and I'm out of honey right now, but I can gather pollen. And then I can also make all kinds of medicines from the hive. And I'm also an apitherapist. I use the bees in therapy. And then I have my garden. My garden does several things for me. It provides me with income through the nursery, and it also provides me with food. And then, you know, what's interesting about all the things I'm doing, Laura Oldaney, my partner, she talks about alternative currencies. The one she loves to talk about is mango currency. And so when I ask you, how are your skills holding up to the pandemic, think about what you have to offer the community if money all of a sudden wasn't worth anything. What do you have? What skills do you have? What are you growing? This is all part of frugal living, because guess what? All those things that would work well as alternative incomes where there's no money, they also can give you regular money income, monetary value during non-pandemic times. So this is a really good thing to start looking at in your life. Um, and so I also have an apothecary. So I dry lots of herbs and things from my garden, and I try to be creative in finding medicines that I can make. And we have such great resources with the internet that we can look everything up. I mean, right now, and you can find out what you have in your garden that can make something really, really good and that people want. And it's so interesting how people don't realize all that they really do have, resources right there in front of them. Even the one that lately, so what's a great respiratory herb? Spanish needle. I mean, it grows everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. There it is. It's also nutritional too. And this is completely native and completely wild. I mean, there's the resource right in front of you. Some of the other things I have is I have a cat. And Dolliver isn't just a regular cat. He provides me with some love and all that, and we're very good friends, but he's a working cat. Some people call them barn cats. He's out there controlling the rodent problem or challenge at the moon landing. I'm making a lot of compost. I've got a lot of food that they want, mangoes and papayas and all sorts of things. And I'm going to tell you right now, he has a door to come in the house and out as he wants. During the day, he mostly sleeps. And at night, he patrols the property. And since I brought him here about 3 months ago now, my problems have gone away. I can start plants in the nursery without any issues. He takes care of it. And what does he ask in return? He asks for a little bit of love. I give him a little bit of junk food, but mostly he eats the animals he catches, and I've seen him do it. And that's actually much healthier than buying food for him, because guess what these animals are eating? They're eating from my garden. Matter of fact, they're probably pretty darn healthy. They sure look healthy when I see them there. So that's a wonderful resource that we don't think about. Oh, cats and dogs can be helpful too, but I got to be honest with you. I think a cat can be a lot more helpful in the garden than a dog. Um, Dehydrator. Dehydrator is a wonderful thing to invest in. And so for me, when I do invest in something, plants and equipment, I really think about how they're going to pay for themselves. Remember, pay for the trip. And my dehydrator has paid for itself so many times over and over and over, because I'm able to store plants that normally wouldn't be able to store it. I would not hesitate to get the best dehydrator you can get. It's going to pay for itself. It's well worth that thing. Kombucha. Here's a perfect example for paying for the trip. I make kombucha for myself. I can't sell kombucha because you have to have a special license or something for that. But what I can do is I can offer out the scobies, and I made some nice simple directions. And guess what? So now, I sell a SCOBY. And of course, one of the things that I do is I give away a lot of things. If I don't know people, I don't give it away. But when I know people, or if I know someone that's in need, I give away. And that ability to give things away can really bring so much goodness to your heart. And you can do that. So the scobies, of course, I give some away, I sell some, but it completely pays for itself. Where growing tea hasn't been successful for me. And even though I do grow sugarcane, I don't have a sugarcane press, so I need to buy these materials. I call those soft bills. And with the idea of always trying to do something more, keeping those ideas in your mind. So in my garden, the things that I'm getting ready to bring in, chickens can bring a lot for you. They give you a beautiful waste for your compost. You can eat them. I know people are cringing, but really that's what people used to do, and it's not a bad thing. And of course, the eggs. And even if you are going to be eating the chickens, you can make pillows with the down as well. Ducks also can be very, very helpful. And I'm getting ready to bring in chickens with the idea. I have 2 bathtubs of composting earthworms, which I also do sell in the fall and the winter, but I also use and sell the castings that I'm able to harvest 10 to 20 gallons per bathtub per month. So there's
Albert,
another resource. Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. I just want to give you
No
a
worries.
5-minute mark. Thank you so much for sharing.
You-
Super, super inspiring.
You got it. Thank you. So, I could go on and on. Some people say that I have a lot to say, which I know I talk too much. But one of the things I want to complete this with is be honest with yourself. Make a list of what you're doing, what's working, what feels good, and what doesn't. And be really just let go of what doesn't work. You keep remembering that spirituality is really, really important. Find some spirituality in your life and purpose that makes you feel good, and save something for the rainy day. It's so important. And so, like I said, I hope that you guys got something out of this. The other thing, the last thing, is I have what I call my cabinet. And just like the government, like the president has his cabinet, my chief of staff is Laurel Daney. She's my chief of staff. And then I have 2 other people, Lev Pazakov, who really, he's got his own thing going, but he helps me, and we sit down and we really kind of find really cool new ideas. And then there's Alyssa Hevish, who's also in my cabinet, and she's my apprentice in beekeeping, and she keeps me on my toes. When you're teaching something, you can learn so much because you have to be that much better at what you're doing when you're teaching. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mandolin. And I hope you guys got something. And if anybody wants to come out to the moon landing, just hit me up. And when this thing is all over, you can come see what we're doing over here. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Albert. That was so inspiring. I loved all the details about all the specific ways we can move towards these regenerative ways of living. And I love the way that you depicted it because it makes it so simple and so accessible. So thank you so much for inspiring all of us and giving us this really profound sense of hope as we move forward during these times.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, believe me.
So we're going to move towards the Sustainable Kashi Community Facebook group. And Amy is putting in the link for the group if you're not already involved in there. And there we can continue sharing any ideas or insights or questions The question from today will be posted in that group, which will be, what are you doing to move towards a regenerative lifestyle? And really exciting thing is we have a giveaway for this week. So when you comment on the Facebook, posted it, well, when you comment on the Facebook post answering the question, we're going to go through those questions, and whichever one really resonates and stands out the most will win a one-on-one session with me with a life design session. So we're going to go through your life and really analyze it and see how your needs can meet your yields and vice versa, creating an abundant regenerative lifestyle for yourself. So that'll be really, really fun, and we're excited to be able to give that away. And we'll be offering giveaways every week, so stay tuned for the next giveaways that we'll be having. We'll have a video that will be posted tomorrow on Frugal Living, so definitely keep your eyes open for that. That'll be posted in the group as well as the Facebook page. And we're also taking donations at this point. So if you feel that you were impacted by this class and you would like to donate some financial capital, you can send it to sustainablekashi@gmail for the PayPal account. And I truly hope that we can place our values around ethics over economy when we take this time to really step back and see how we can move forward in a more regenerative fashion in our lives. And my hopes are that this class instills inspiration on what we truly need to be happy. I love that you said that, Albert. Happiness is so essential in what we are doing in our day-to-day lives. And I also love that you said, how are your resources really providing for you during this time of the pandemic? How can you look and really analyze your life and see, what can I do that can be more resilient? What Albert showed was so much resiliency. It doesn't seem like your lifestyle has changed much based on the pandemic. You still have all these different forms of currency and different ways that you're living and providing a living for yourself. So that's so inspiring. And I really hope that these classes allow a space for us to really step back and analyze our lives and move forward in a way that we're living our passions, we're living in a more closed loop manner, and we're living according to our values and our morals. So together we are resilient. And I'm grateful for this space for all of us to come together. So thank you all for joining us.